but I did notice something very peculiar about it. So let me back up a little bit, and we're going to again define what's happening in this lawsuit, and we're going to talk about kind of just a little bit of background before I get into why it is New York County.
Yeah.
So the lawsuit, again, this alleges that Shuli and Carl and TSN and Who Are These Podcasts are in violation of the civil rights law sections 50 and 51, which relate to that commercialization of a public figure. So this is basically a right of privacy or publicity statute. That is basically what we're talking about here. So this lawsuit goes on to describe that there are two events that are pertinent to this case. The two events are DabbleCon 2, which occurred on August 16th and 17th of 2024, and Dabble House, which happened in April of 25. I don't remember.
Yes.
That literally just happened. I don't remember the date of it.
Something like that.
Why are these two events important? Well, the first reason that these two events are important is we can't talk about DabbleCon 1 because the statute of limitations for this type of civil rights law, my understanding is that it's 1 year. There are different statutes of limitations for different types of lawsuits. My understanding is that for this type of lawsuit, there is a 1 year statute of limitations. And so that means that Stuttering John filed just under the gun, just under that 1 year mark.
Yep.
In order to meet the statute of limitations when it comes to DabbleCon 2. Why include DabbleCon 2 at all? Now, obviously, part of the reason for that relates to the tapes. But in addition to that, I think that another reason that they really needed to include DabbleCon 2 in this lawsuit is because DabbleCon 2 occurred in New York State, and we are talking about New York civil rights law.
Yep.
That is the first. I don't think that this lawsuit could have existed if you did not include DabbleCon 2.
Yep.
I
agree with all that.
Okay, so you had to have both events. So a lot of people keep saying, "Oh, it's because they did the tapes at both of those events." That's part of it, I'm sure. However, it's also because you need a New York State event. Now, why didn't we include DabbleCon 1? Again, it was more than a year ago, so it's not within the statute of limitations.
Yep.
So that gives us the why and the why now. Now, why Carl and Shulie? I mean, we can all guess the answer to that question, but I think that this lawsuit reads as much more hatred towards Shuli than it does towards Carl.
I agree.
So why include Carl? Well, Carl lives in New York State, and again, we need to be using this New York civil rights law. This law is specific to New York State, and that is what the basis of this lawsuit is. So we need to have that in order to have jurisdiction. At least that's my understanding of jurisdiction.
Yeah.
So now, why in New York County? Why in New York County? So Carl does not reside in New York County. This DabbleCon 2 was not held in New York County. The name of the county for both of those things is Monroe County.
Wait.
Yes.
I don't think I knew that. So wait. So the county for this is not where the Comedy of the Carlson was?
Correct. That is correct.
Okay.
New York County is in Manhattan, in New York City. Rochester, New York, specifically Monroe County, where Comedy at the Carlson is located, is in Rochester, and it is about a 6-hour drive between those two places.
Huh.
Interesting, right? So why New York County is the next question, right?
Because he's retarded.
Well.
All right, you have an answer?
I do have an answer to that. And the lawsuit does actually address that a little bit. At one point, the lawsuit talks about there are listeners to these podcasts in New York County.
Okay.
Now, this is hard and this is challenging. If you have a radio broadcast that goes all over the world and there's a lawsuit relating to that broadcast, where do you have the jurisdiction to file your lawsuit? That is a complicated question because people are listening to it everywhere. So how do you pick which court to file in? You don't want to file in every single court because every single court doesn't want to issue a ruling on this. You have to pick one place. Right. So how do you pick that one place?
So there
in this case.
Okay, good. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Answer that because I'm curious. I have a theory, but
well, I don't have an answer as to why he picked this, but I thought what you're asking was long arm statutes. And long arm statutes are specific to events that might have to pull in parties from other states, what should be the jurisdiction, where it should be. And one of those rules is where the majority of the events that led up to the lawsuit took place.
Yes.
Now, that should be what you're saying,
Monroe County.
Monroe County. But to those particular comments that are in the lawsuit about him saying that there are listeners there, he provides no evidence or proof that money came from there. So that's like another reason why I don't know why. But I'd love to hear what you think. Yeah.
Well, something that I noticed, there's been a fair amount of the last year and a half of my life or so where I've gone onto a little website that's called NICEF, and NICEF is the New York State filing website, so you can see filed documents. Any document that's filed in the Supreme Court, you can see right up at the top here, this is a document that's filed in the Supreme Court. I pulled this directly off of the NICEF website. You can go pull things off of there too. And one of the things that you can do on that website is you can search by people's names. And so, I don't know, for a while now, I've been just randomly going on there, searching John Melendez. I've also been randomly going on there and searching Vincent Imbezi, just because I'm curious what he's up to. I like to see what he's up. I'm a curious lady. And something that I do notice is that everybody's favorite, Vince the lawyer, he files an awful lot of lawsuits in New York County.
Okay.
He practices out in New York County. He probably knows the judges in New York County. He probably knows a lot of other attorneys in New York County. I believe the Tabber is based out of New York County. And I'm just saying that I think this is total conjecture. I am totally making this up, but I think it's a little bit peculiar that Tabber and John have chosen New York County as the jurisdiction to file this lawsuit in, when somebody else who's been involved in other lawsuits relating to these people and things also really likes to file lawsuits in New York County. Little weird, no?
It is very weird, and that really kind of solidifies what I've been thinking all along, is that, and I'm pretty sure this is what you've been thinking as well, is that there's been some strings being pulled behind the scenes by a little lawyer.
None other.
Who is trying to fuck with John and setting him up to fail. That's my theory.
I don't know that I would go so far as to say that, but I will absolutely say that I believe that there is some involvement. And we can all agree to that. And again, we're going to get into actually going through some of the specific paragraphs of this lawsuit. I've pulled some really interesting paragraphs to look at. I know Cardiff did an incredible job already going through the whole thing. We're going to look at a couple of very specific sections. But I have always been a firm believer that everybody's favorite attorney really likes to watch, and he likes to watch things go down, and he likes to watch us in the Dabbleverse discover things, like, for example, the fact that Tabber threw himself a going away party where everybody thought that he was going to Europe, but really he was going to jail. He likes to watch us discover those things live on the internet. It's fun to watch, right? We all like to watch. Who doesn't like to watch? We all know Steel Toe likes to watch, for fuck's sake. Who in this universe doesn't like to watch? We're all voyeurs over here. I think that this particular attorney might like to watch a little bit more than other people.
So let me ask you. So my theory has been that this is Vince setting John up to fail because that jurisdictional issue is a huge one. That's a huge, huge thing that literally will make John have to start over in a lot of ways.
You know what's so exciting?
With a filing. Yeah. Well, I'd just like to hear what your theory is.
I'm just going to say this. And now, again, I'm not an attorney. I might misremember this. But I just want to talk a little bit about a court dismissal relating to lack of personal jurisdiction. Typically, when there is a court dismissal relating to lack of personal jurisdiction in New York State, that means that you don't get to reset the statute of limitations, which means that if the court dismisses this case, they're done because the statute of limitations is going to be blown. Only way that they'll be able to reinvigorate it is appeal, and I think we can all agree that they wouldn't win on appeal.
Well, then, it sounds like you feel the same way I do. Then it was a way to sabotage John for our amusement.
Okay. So, and again, my big theory on the connection with Vince is that Vince has been very outspoken again, in contrast to my argument that more people should have been named as defendants. I have not stopped saying that, and Vince has specifically disagreed with me. He has said, why would you think you're going to get sued over this? Why would anybody be involved other than Carl and Shulie? And so the fact that other people aren't named makes me suspicious. And the fact that Vince is referenced in this lawsuit without being specifically referenced, that's a fun one also. Yeah. We have lots and lots of little hints. I don't know what the goal is. I don't know what the plan is. I don't know.
Okay, that's fair.
I don't know the motivation for doing this, because there's a lot of risk if Vince is behind this, if Vince is involved in this in any way, if there is something nefarious going on with this lawsuit, if Tabber is just dabbling in law as opposed to being a real attorney that exists in the universe who knows how to spell his own name. If all of those things are true, these people are risking their entire professional career. And despite the fact that I think that some of the players in this game are imbeciles, I don't think that they're that stupid.
However, I agree with everything until that last sentence. Vince has a history.
Maybe I'm the dumb one.
Vince has a history of doing this shit, and he did this shit last year against John with that $1.2 million lawsuit, which, in my opinion,
filed in New York County, which I seriously, and I'm being legitimate with no exaggeration or hyperbole, thought that anyone who had a bug up their ass involved in that case should have tried to get Vince disciplined and possibly even disbarred, because that was an absurd thing to do and a complete waste of the court's time, frivolously, and him knowing it. And so, like you're saying, I do agree with everything you're saying, but to say that they're not stupid enough to do that I disagree with. I think I would like to believe the best in people, and maybe that's because I'm naive. Maybe I'm very naive, and maybe I'm very stupid, but I believe that that people generally have good intentions. I'm definitely stupid. I'm literally listening to myself say the words right now, and I'm going, fuck, damn it, god damn it, why are you saying those words? I want to think I want to think that this is a sincere lawsuit. I want to think that John is truly upset by the fact that his likeness was used, and he is suing for a good reason as opposed to a bitterness reason. I don't know.
You're talking to a very skeptical person. So maybe your audience just isn't the right audience right now, but I don't. I think he's an idiot, and I think that this is a last-ditch effort for him to hopefully see if he could land some kind of money, and he did it poorly. He failed at his attempt to save some dignity, and it's only going to backfire in his face in a terrible, terrible way. And he's a glutton for punishment because he's
again and again.
Exactly, because he's repeating everything that he's already lost on. And I don't get it, other than there have been times in my life when I've been dealing with someone where they've been talking, and I really have to tell myself, you're not talking to a rational mind. Don't try to rationalize this. Yeah. And that's what it's like with John. Yeah.
I don't disagree with that at all. And again, I said just a little while ago, this is somebody suing people that I really care about. These are my friends. Carl and Shulie are my friends. They are my coworkers, but at the end of the day, they're my friends. And I'm angry when people try to hurt them. And John has tried to hurt them in really, really awful ways repeatedly. And that makes me incredibly sad. It makes me incredibly sad.
But let me tell you this. There's a little bit of a silver lining to that. And I agree with you. Your friends are my friends.
Yeah.
And I believe that should someone feel inclined to really have some fun with this. This could be an insanely entertaining weapon against John for so many reasons.
I just can't wait till TMZ picks it up. Come on. It's going to be amazing.